Hello, everyone, and welcome to Irenicast. We are a podcast of post-evangelical ministers and theological thinkers grappling with our place in the progressive Christian world. Thank you for joining us for another conversation on faith and culture. This is the last Tuesday of the month, which means it is Divine SINema time, and I am joined by my good friends and secondary co-hosts, Adam and Dylan. Gentlemen, welcome.
The B team.
Thanks for having us again. Second string. All right.
Woo!
If you are not familiar with how this works, basically we have chosen a bad Christian movie and we watched it, and we're going to sit down and talk about how bad, or maybe it surprised us. Spoilers, this one did not.
That's kind of redundant, isn't it? Bad Christian movie?
A little bit. So we do this at the end of every month. However, next month we will do it on the second to the last Tuesday, because the last Tuesday of the month falls on our 100th episode, and we have some special stuff coming up for that. So keep listening and get all the information. We'll give you more as we get closer to that. So this week we are looking at Kirk Cameron's Saving Christmas. Here's a little bit of a taste of this particular movie, and at the end of the trailer we will talk about it.
Do you ever feel like Christmas has been hijacked?
Hey, where's Christian? How's he doing? Is he okay?
Oh, he's fine, really. He's just not into Christmas this year, that's all.
By all the commercialism and those who want to replace Merry Christmas with Happy Holidays or Season's Greetings, whatever that means.
You okay?
This is not what Christmas is all about.
Some want to pull down every manger scene and tell us why our favorite Christmas traditions are wrong.
Newsflash, not in the Bible. That's a pagan idol symbol. It was the winter solstice. Jesus was not born in December. It's exactly what the Druids did. It's like a carjacking, but like of our religion. And guess what? Santa got in the car, kicked Jesus out, and was like, rolling, and took it.
Isn't it time somebody spoke up?
Everything you see inside there, it's all about Christmas. It's all about Jesus.
I know you love Christmas and you want it to be all about what it's all about. This Christmas, dive headfirst into all of the joy, the dancing, the celebration, the feasting, the imagination and traditions that glorify the true reason for the season.
Ooh, work, Holy Spirit. Ha! Can I get an amen? I see them scales are falling off. Glory. Glory.
Join me and my family, and together, let's put Christ back into Christmas.
So we figured, it being the holidays, and hopefully all of you had a great Christmas if that's what you celebrate. Hopefully you're not too Christmased out. If you are and you go watch this movie, then you will definitely be Christmased out. You don't need to worry about it anymore.
No, it'll save them. This is if you've been burned out, this is the movie for you.
So if you haven't seen this movie, Saving Christmas is a movie, I guess. It is starring Kirk Cameron. In fact, I think that's the official title, is Kirk Cameron's Saving Christmas. The front of the cover is him on a rope swinging in with a present in his hand, like literally. Oh, my goodness. Anyway.
Quite misleading, too.
Very misleading.
Jewel of the Nile, or what was that
film
movie?
Of the Christmas nature.
Yeah,
Romancing the
Stone.
Stone.
the Stone.
Boom. Yeah, it's almost like, well, not even close, but same image.
Same image, yeah. So basically, the plot of this movie is through a conversation with his sister, Kirk Cameron. He learns that his brother-in-law, Christian, that's his brother-in-law, not his religious affiliation, although it is his religious affiliation.
2 for 1.
Exactly. Some subtle symbolism there in the name.
Yeah, definitely.
So Kirk Cameron learns that his brother-in-law, Christian, is not into Christmas this year. We come to find out that he is struggling with the fact that Christmas trees, Santa, and presents have hijacked Christmas from Jesus and the Bible. After finding that Christian has retreated from the party to his car, Kirk Cameron begins a conversation with him that will change everything. They exchange witty banter, and I'm putting quotes up, air quotes in that, of that witty banter. Kirk Cameron gives several basically mini sermons dealing with the biblical justification for Christmas trees and the historical justification for Santa, which I can't wait till we get to that one. Ultimately, Christian's Christmas spirit is restored and the party kicks into high gear with some Family Force 5. So
we're so negative about
we
everything.
are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's cleanse the palate a little bit. Anyone have anything positive to say about this particular movie?
Okay, I got some stuff. Okay, so I'm just going to put this out up front. This isn't really a movie. It felt like the extended version of like Adam Ruins Everything. He does, like these 10 to 15 minute segments about, Adam ruins engagement rings, or Adam ruins this system, or, like exposing kind of the background. And it really felt like that, where it's like this infomercial. So in some ways I feel like, it did that really well. It was more of like a YouTube 15-minute video explaining, like here's the background on, whether it's true or not, some background on Christmas stuff. If that's what they were going for, which it wasn't, because I think this came out before most of that stuff was going on. But it was kind of like that. And overall, while it's kind of campy, I don't think it really took itself that seriously. Like, it doesn't feel like there was forced drama or, like a lot of the other movies we watched where you're just like, oh, this is horrible acting. Everything kind of seemed like they were having fun doing it. So I think overall the tone matched what they were trying to do. And it was kind of silly and, yeah, a little bit fun and didn't take itself too seriously. I have a lot of stuff to say, but I felt like, I'll give it that. That was all right.
Yeah, I'll say that whoever the cinematographer was, or the person holding the actual camera, actually made some decent art decisions instead of being like milquetoast camera shots like the other movies that we've watched. Nice. That were just so bland and non-committal to anything looking good. I think there were certain scenes in this movie that I was like, oh, that actually looks kind of decent, and it looks like they put some time into making this set look dramatic, or positioning and moving the camera in such a way and playing with light in a couple scenes, which I thought was kind of interesting. I also think the actor that plays Christian actually has some comedic value and timing, just not.
You're just given a poor script.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't. Yes. He doesn't make use of it here.
I think he's the director.
Oh, is he?
I think the guy who plays Christian is either that or he's a main producer guy.
Okay.
The only reason I say this is, I sorry to interrupt, but he one of the other things I was going to say that was positive is they do the whole outtake thing at the end, which you can love or hate, but they do it. But he's the guy calling the shots. Like, okay, let's cut this part, or we're going to go back to this. So that just seeing those things at the end made me think maybe he's. I'm guessing he might be the director. I should know this before I talk, probably, but I'm going to IMDb that real quick. Sorry, Dylan. Go ahead though.
No, that was about it. Yeah, that was
short list.
It's my whole list.
I'll agree with you though. Like, I felt like overall the production value was decent. There was one or two times where I felt like there was a gap that they didn't have any music for or something, and so they just put in some weird like background. They just found a track off of a free royalty free thing or something like that, and played some kind of like. There was once or twice where I was like, wait, is it like where's that music coming from? What is that? It was distracting. There was a little bit of so sound choices, editing choices like that were. They ran out of money for the Family Force 5. Yeah. They couldn't. They played their track so many times that we're gonna just put a generic thing, and it was like, wait, what's one of the times when he's in the car between something? I don't know if they were talking about the snow globes or whatever. Like, I think I was listening with my earphones off, and I like took them off to listen. Like, is that coming from somewhere else? Like, it was that weird. Anyway,
yeah. So I thought, to go with Dylan, I thought that the cinematography was great. There was some like legitimately fun camera angles, particularly the end where he slides into the Christmas tree and he's going slow motion past a little girl that's like just perfectly placed. I thought so. There was little things like that where I was like, oh, that's fun. Like you could tell they were having fun with everything. Adam, while you were talking, I did look it up. He is not only the director but the writer as well.
Nice.
So
the writer, it was his own fault.
and I agree with you there too, Adam. I thought he was like, for this type of film, I thought he was a better actor than Kirk Cameron. And Kirk Cameron's supposed to be a professional. I thought Kirk Cameron was
supposed to be
lousy. Like,
it was.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Anyway, we'll get into that also. And I thought, I thought the general idea, like if you strip away all the bad information and the cheesy plot line, the general feel of like wanting to create a space for joy and happiness over the holidays. It was good. It was a good theme that was so poorly executed. So we'll kind of try to start from the beginning, and then we'll grab some themes as we go on. But it starts with basically like a preamble or a prologue or whatever, where it's just Kirk Cameron sitting in front of the fireplace talking about what people feel about Christmas. And, there are those that want to get Christmas out of everything. And then he talks about the other side. So then he which is another good thing from my perspective, at least attempts to intelligently, I'm putting air quotes again, critique his own people. He acknowledges that there are those within the Christian community that have taken their bring Christ into Christmas too far, to the point that just because a lot of the things that we use as symbols and celebratory things during Christmas have pagan roots, that doesn't mean we should abandon the whole thing and not celebrate. So he kind of balances those two things in a horribly executed and acted monologue. Yeah. And I'm pretty convinced that Kirk Cameron has a very unhealthy relationship with hot cocoa.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
He enjoys it way too much.
He does. And not only that, but like his whole justification for enjoying the holidays is when he's critiquing the people who say that we need to get Christmas out of everything, and he uses the word PC culture or political correctness or whatever. And then he says, what's the next thing they're going to tell us? That hot cocoa is bad for us? It is bad for you. It's not something you should drink on a regular basis. Like this, it was so... And you could tell he wasn't really drinking it, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
That was clearly an empty mug.
Maybe it was just the 20th shot or something, and he'd already gone through 2 or 3, and they're just like, "We're cutting you off, Kirk. Like that's it." And by the time because there was another random scene in the outtakes. He's clearly just riffing on stuff. Like it really felt like maybe that whole initial monologue was only 10% scripted, and the rest was him improvising.
Yeah.
Well, in the end, his ending closing monologue also was, ended with a good portion about hot cocoa again, and it was just strange.
Something happened to poor old Kirk.
I know,
he does have a pretty solid depression beard in the first intro.
He loves the winter beard. So yeah, he goes through this whole list at the beginning of, I love this part. Just trying to convince people that he loves Christmas. I love I love this. I love that. I love the winter beard. I love hot chocolate. He loves all the kids, which was a little creepy the way he said I love all the kids weird. With my winter beard. So getting to some of the things that frustrated me, just this general, what about the kids? These people out there that want to take it, they want to hurt our kids kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what they care about.
Yeah.
Most people that I know who are like, screw Christmas, love and try to do as best they can to, have kids have a fun time, but it's not doing any good for our kids.
Yeah. Alan, my regular co-host on the show, really wanted to be here this week, but unfortunately the time we were recording this, it wasn't able to do it. But he did send me some thoughts, and he did make a really good point about that opening sequence, because the opening sequence has nothing to do with the rest of the movie. It is basically like I said before, it's a prologue. So it's that moment before the opening credits. And Alan said that the plot of this movie is tenuous and ill-conceived when it has to open with a fireside chat explaining exactly what's going to happen. And I think that's a solid point. Like there was a patronizing nature to the beginning and the opening. Like, here's why we're doing this movie, and it's important for you to know. Which, Absolutely. From a filmmaking standpoint, you lose all art from it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's this whole assumption that we're all in on it. I mean, that was the thing of like, you guys get it, right? Like, people like this. It was so focused. It really didn't even seem like it was made for people, although the message seems to be for people who are, upset about the Christmas stuff. It wasn't for them. It was more for like people, it's almost as if it was clearly like on the box or whatever up front. They just tell you, okay, we know you have friends like this, so why don't you buy them this movie to show them this? So you don't actually have to have a legitimate conversation. You can just, show them Kirk Cameron telling somebody else, like, this is what it's going to be. And you all get it, right? You get it. Yeah. Multiple times. I didn't count, but there was probably at least 15 times, maybe not. But he said like, we, us, over and over. There's this, we're being attacked.
It had a little, it's, obviously Christian propaganda, but it had like a little bit of a, like almost a cultic kind of sense to it, of like making logical conclusions and jumps in how he's beginning to explain different elements of Christmas and how they're actually related to Christianity.
Yeah. Yeah. And not only that, but he on one end, he is trying to bring Christ back into Christmas, and then recognizing that some people are taking it too far by thinking that all the things we celebrate for Christmas have pagan roots and all that kind of stuff. And I would say that the majority of the movie tends to not really address, with the exception of the side plot with his stereotypical black friend, which I'm sure we'll very much get into, especially considering his name is DeAndre, and I don't even, we'll get into that.
Save it.
Yeah. So aside from that side plot that talks about like PC culture, because he has this little, conspiracy with his friend who I assume works in his office, and they're talking about like the shirt day, and now they can't say Merry Christmas or whatever. But he really seems to be addressing that core thing of like, he really seems concerned that there has to be a Christian justification for things that really aren't in the Bible. Like these huge, like, I don't even want to call them theological hoops that he's jumping through, because there's nothing theological about the hoops that he's jumping through, but he's really trying to justify, like literally trying to justify that the Bible gives us a premise for Christmas trees. And there's really nothing there. And not only that, but he's coming from a perspective that is taking the Bible very literally, but also taking a lot of narrative freedom with his interpretation of Scripture, especially when he's talking about like the swaddling clothes and then the grave clothes and stuff like that, which is not a bad connection to make. But if you don't read the Bible from a narrative standpoint and you're reading it from a historical standpoint, you have very little things to stand on when it comes to that. So it was this mix mash of things where it just felt like pure justification for what he wanted to do, which would be an argument that he would use against everyone else for anyone doing anything against what he believes.
Yeah. I got the sense during the movie that he like looked at different items in his Christmas shrine around his house and then turned to the index of his Bible and was like, all right, where does it mention a tree? Like, all right, let's go there and
Lebanon, there's a tree there. Let's talk about that.
So
yeah. Alan mentioned in the responses that he sent me, he mentioned that the movie seems to be based off of like responses to Facebook posts that kind of get put out there every Christmas season. So after this opening monologue by the fire, it moves into the credit sequence, and which is ironic because the credit sequence, it's this little cartoon of Jesus and Mary and the whole Christian story and all that kind of stuff with music set over all the people. But what's interesting is that those images I know distinctively because when I was a youth pastor, there's this Christian media group called Igniter Video, and they came out with this video during Christmas time that basically like breaks apart our traditional understanding of the nativity scene and gives it more of a biblically accurate view through this fun cartoon. I showed it in youth group all the time and everything like that. So the very sequence that he is using in his movie to kind of say, quit worrying about how it really happened, but using arguments on how it really happened to justify why he's celebrating the way he is now. Like it was just very ironic to me that the opening sequence that he is using is something that is kind of more in the camp of the place that he's criticizing of, why are we so concerned with history or whatever.
The whole message kind of threw me. It was kind of like a curveball for me. So I went in thinking that this is going to be a movie that's going to really attack the folks that are, they want to take Christ out of Christmas, right? And he mentions that at one point. He kind of says, basically, we're getting it from both sides. There are people out there who are like, hey, it's fine that you have Christmas, but just tone it down. Don't be so happy, or don't push it on us. So those are the people that are outsiders who definitely aren't Christian, but who are, don't force your Christmas on me. Let's just say happy holidays. And so that's kind of the crowd that I was assuming this movie was going to address. But then the rest of everything doesn't do anything. Like we never really talk about that. Instead, he said, there's also people, that happen to be inside the faith. There are all these folks who are, we shouldn't be celebrating. So it's the bah humbug people or whatever within the Christian faith. So I was completely taken aback by, that's the direction we're going, because every argument that gets made or that's who they're addressing. The whole thing is about that. So I was like, I wasn't really prepared for that. But it's just, I felt like the entire thing was, we want to have fun. They didn't say it was all about commercialization, but that was one of the critiques, right? People who say it's just all about money. Or at one point, I think the Christian guy even says like, all these presents, we could be, getting fresh water for you, like all these amazing, right? Like the actual things that, like I think, like would be beneficial. That's what we should do with Christmas. And instead, it's basically, let's do these mental gymnastics to you. And this is, this is my ultimate complaint for the movie. Is that we will use Jesus as a justification for keeping things how we want, or to let us celebrate the way that we want, versus you're not really putting Christ back in Christmas. Like you're just using Christ as a means to allow for your already commercialized, capitalistic American version of Christmas. Like, and it didn't seem unapologetic about that. It seemed pretty clear.
It seemed
that's all
very
it is.
much that the American way is the Christian way. Like even at the end, his monologue was like, it's all about material, right? Because he used the incarnation as a justification for buying crap. Like, it was astounding to me. And then like he's framing this whole thing. So once we get past those credit sequence, he's framing this whole thing as like a story and a narrative and how we create our own symbols, which I am on board with 100%. Like we should have these symbols, but he's not leaving it open-ended in the sense like, here are all these different things that we celebrate and you can attribute your own meaning to it. He's saying, here's the meaning, you know? He uses the Christmas Carol, the story, as like an analogy of everyone in that story has their own story. He's like, Tiny Tim has his story, and this person has his story, and then follows by saying, even Scrooge has his story. And I'm like, he is the story. Like, he's not some side character that you're like, even the bad guy. Like, that is the story of it. It was just this weird meshing of things. So then it opens up into the Christmas party. And I feel like the brother-in-law Christian, the facial expressions and the things that he said probably for the first 10 minutes of the movie, I felt like I was looking in a mirror while I was watching it. Like he gave these looks like I'm in the middle of this crazy world and none of it makes sense. And that's exactly what I was feeling in that moment as a viewer.
Yeah, I also felt like this movie had a lot of separate intros. It felt like the end of the last Lord of the Rings movie, but with bad Christian intros. There's like the first scene there's where he's sitting in his Christmas shrine talking about all the Christmas. There's the little animation scene, and then there's another voiceover as the actual like party starts. Yeah,
which was also very strange. And then we're introduced to DeAndre, the only black man, not the only black person in the movie. But who basically, like, I feel like, now it's possible that whoever DeAndre is, that this is his personality and this is how he is and this is what he thought was funny. But it felt like they gave him the role and they're like, listen, I want you to watch all of Chris Rock's stand-up comedy and all of Chris Tucker's movies, and I want you to, like, be that, you know? Because it was just so over the top, like, and then add a little Pentecostal preacher to all of it. And it was just...
It's a bad trope of the fast-talking, loud, charismatic black man. And the only person of color in the whole movie. Although, I mean, granted, it was a small cast, like, you know, it's just one person's house party.
And you could see in the background his family, so there were other, you know, at least two other people of color.
Oh, I didn't, okay.
Because I was watching, I wanted to make sure.
Well, maybe Bill on the couch might have been...
He looked vaguely ethnic.
Yeah.
Well, there was that weird random old guy at the end. Yeah. Did you guys catch that? Like, some person that was not in the film at all, just older.
Sound guy wandered home.
Older guy was sitting on a couch with some hot cocoa.
Yeah.
And says, "This is why I come to these parties." And then that's it. Like, I didn't understand any of that. Anyway, so
that's that guy's in Kirk Cameron's hot cocoa appreciation
club. It's a Facebook group.
Nice.
Yeah.
They roast their own cocoa beans. So I don't know. So then they move on, and he finds his brother-in-law Christian in the car, and this is where the movie basically, like, the bulk of it takes place in them having a conversation in the car, and it starts with him having some genuine concerns, like, how can we buy all these things when there's people starving, which was never addressed throughout the whole thing. In fact, the opposite was addressed. It was assumed that everyone is upper middle class and can have these big feasts and afford presents for their kids and all that kind of stuff. And the house they had 2 fridges.
Huge.
Did you notice at the end when he's walking to talk to his wife, he had 2 fridges, like 2 really nice. Like, this was...
and a wine cellar as well.
Right?
Like a refrigerated wine cellar.
Yeah, a full-size one right next to the 2 fridges. Like, it was just a row of refrigeration.
Yeah. A big part of this movie is... also plays into the straw man fallacy. So the straw man fallacy is an argumentative fallacy where you build up the case of your opponent when you're arguing something against them, and you build it up with like very easy questions that you can answer. And you say, well, you know, you believe X, Y, and Z. That's obviously false. So your whole argument is false. And I felt like his brother's initial list of complaints, like you guys said, there's a lot of really good, valid things that he asks in there. But the movie picks 3 of them and says, all right, we answered these. So obviously Christmas is good now, and just kind of leaves it at that.
Kirk, how dare you?
And his first complaint is how the nativity is just like a small part of the background.
Yeah.
Which never really gets answered. Like Kirk Cameron's answer to that one is basically like this long story about the connection between the swaddling clothes and the burial cloths, and really making that connection between the birth of Christ foreshadowing the death and resurrection of Christ, which is fine. I mean, that's pretty standard evangelical theology, but it never really addressed. So that first one was just, it was kind of a throwaway. It was like, well, we need to figure out how to talk about the nativity, but there's no real, because no one criticizes the nativity. You know what I mean? Like even out there, like the quote unquote secular world saying, they're not saying like we want to get rid of Christ and we want to get rid of Christmas. They're saying we have to remember that there are more people here that are not Christian, and we just want to make sure they feel included during the holidays if they're not celebrating Christmas, and say happy holidays. Like there's no legislation being written to, you know, ban people who believe in Christ. Nothing like that. In fact, there's only legislation being written to ban people who practice a homosexual lifestyle or whatever. Like, so then he moves on to Christmas trees. So this is where it gets like really Christian, right? Because he starts out with some legitimate arguments, like, you know, how about materialism and we're forgetting the meaning. And then he moves into like the real, like, well, it's not in the Bible, so why do we celebrate it? And the 2 main things that he addresses are the Christmas tree and Santa, which let's do the Christmas tree first, because I have a lot to say about the Santa part. So the Christmas tree, what did you think about Kirk Cameron's biblical justification for the Christmas tree?
It was sound.
Solid like a rock.
Yes.
So he arrives right at the idea that like ultimately the Christmas tree lot should remind you of the cross. Is that what the kind of like final, if I'm recalling this correctly, like every time you go to the Christmas tree lot, you know, remember the cross, because the trees are made out of wood, and wood is what the cross was made
I think he's
out
just
of.
meaning like the Christmas lot being the place that you see the Christmas tree.
Yeah, so I mean, basically, he then picks, here are 4 different verses about the Bible talking about trees. And therefore, when we take a tree and we put it in our house, you know, things happened around trees in the Bible, therefore it's biblical.
Yeah. He uses the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in Genesis, and how those kind of bookmark scripture.
Yeah, paneling the inside of the temple.
Yeah, and then he talks about when they built the temple where God lives, how they brought trees inside and put like fruit and lights on them and stuff like that.
Well, not really, but
not
okay.
really, exactly. And
evergreen
so
having
saying,
to do with everlasting life.
And then he moves on to the Jesus hung on a tree, using the cross as a tree, also, which, I mean,
red tinsel. I guess.
Throw
on your tree.
Take it literal. That would be like talk about like worrying about the kids. You just put a crucified Christ in the middle and there, put the presents under there.
Stick a presents under him. Thanks, Jesus.
So it was like jumping, like I said before, jumping through hoops to try to like, you know, because the Christmas tree clearly has origins in pagan culture. Like we reappropriated those symbols, which is exactly what he is doing in this whole movie, right? Is reappropriating these symbols that we already reappropriated much earlier before.
It's Constantine all over, right? Because this is what Constantine did, is say, okay, we're going to put it between, like, we'll pick December 25th because it's between like Saturn, which was the god of plenty or excess, depending on how you're feeling, right? But like between the festival of there was basically 2 weeks before the Christmas time or whatever, and then there was 2 weeks after that there was this other god. So when Constantine's continues to honor the Roman pantheon gods, it's like, well, how is he going to put his own god in there? Well, he throws in the god, his god, and Jesus, in between the 2 festivals. So it's this perfect, like, yeah, we'll squeeze it in there. And it just felt, this is exactly what Kirk Cameron's doing. We're saying, basically between the god of commercialism and capitalism, or American Western thinking, culture, whatever, white, something, and then capitalism. And look, Jesus fits right here in between. And because we can make it fit or seamless. Let's justify it.
Exactly. I would really like to see a sequel. I want to see the biblical justification for eggnog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like
Maybe we should come up with that.
Like, I know, right? Let's like so the eggnog, like you
Easter egg.
Easter egg.
okay,
boom, there.
eggs, new life.
That's right.
Being mixed together with alcohol that heightens life.
Where's the scripture reference?
Communion. Alcohol.
Scripture reference. There we go. Something like that.
Communion. Yeah.
And then I want to see justification for the stockings. I missed on that. You know, like maybe we could do something with like the dust of their feet kind of
There
thing.
you go. Yeah.
And these are dust-free feet, like representing how heaven, where we don't need to brush off the dust. You know, I don't like.
That is just as sound as any argument that was made in this movie.
I know, right?
Absolutely.
And that's the problem. That's the problem is like, if someone doesn't agree with the Christmas tree, fine, then they don't have one. They're not telling you.
Right.
Well, I guess some Christians are advocating that you shouldn't celebrate that or whatever. But like, why? Like, just let it go. Like, just enjoy it. If that's your justification, that's fine. It just seems so, I don't know. There's almost like a desperation in trying to like, I really want everyone to agree with me.
I think that relates to this other idea that I've heard before from several other sources in regards to privilege. If you're used to experiencing privilege, then any type of equality feels like oppression to you. And I feel like there's a very big false oppression complex going on in this film. And I think all the other films that we watch that says there are these other ideologies out there that are making our previous way of celebrating Christmas not the only way to celebrate Christmas now. And to people who have lived and experienced that for their cultural upbringing and the way that they've grown up, like some presence of other ideologies and thoughts, I think feels like oppression to them.
And it's even from people on the inside, right? Like, or
absolutely.
specifically, like that's what makes this film so silly is that you're addressing, 1% of the 1% or something like that. I mean, maybe that's not quite accurate, but I think in our modern context, Christianity, while probably the majority in a lot of places, is no longer the accepted majority. And, we're not really the majority in our country, I wouldn't say. Mm-hmm. Well, it depends how you define Christian. But regardless, let's say it's not everybody. So that's a smaller segment. And then really the film is addressing very specific, small, a very small group within the Christian culture. And I think that's another thing that's really frustrating about the movie is it appears, or I think is attempting to address this much larger. I mean, like I said, I was expecting it to address the people who are outside the Christian faith, and he nods to that, but he doesn't at all. Like there's nothing that has anything to do with people's frustration from the outside. And maybe except for, I guess there are people who I think would say, Christians are hypocritical because they're doing these things that have nothing to do with the story of Jesus and are just appropriating, pagan ideas. So maybe in some way you could say that, but there is this, they're not even addressing that. We're addressing some tiny group within the small, it's basically, it's not just we have to be afraid of the people out there. You might actually even have to be a little bit afraid of the people already inside who aren't willing to just go blindly with everything else we're doing.
Along with that, there's the refusal to accept or take any type of criticism to the ideology. Like Kirk goes through absurd lengths and hoops and jumps to validate every like little stocking and piece of tinsel and ornament on the tree, metaphorically speaking,
and invalidate anyone who disagrees. Like everyone else has seemed like they're crazy. Like the way that he subtly takes jabs at like liberation theology and all these other ways of looking at the gospel are just, they're horrendous. They really are. Like he really seems to have this sense that any critique towards him is an attack, which is represented in the response to the movie itself. Like after the movie came out and he started getting like, by the way, this is a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. He wrote on Facebook, I printed out because I wanted to read this. He said, all of you who love Saving Christmas, go rate it at Rotten Tomatoes right now and send a message to all the critics that we, in capital letters, we decide what movies we want our families to see. If 2,000 of you out of almost 2 million on this page take a minute to rate Saving Christmas, it will take the film to a huge boost and more will see it as a result. Thank you for your help and support in putting the joy of Christ back in Christmas, which I call bullcrap on that.
Yeah.
Like And even in that little thing that he put out on Facebook when the movie came out, I think it was 2014. Like he got backlash from even his own people. Like, come on, like you're pandering. Like that very statement goes against the very heart of what he seemed to be trying to do in the movie itself. And not only that, but like all the criticisms that he's railing against. Adam, what you were mentioning earlier, the idea that there are people who are criticizing Christians and the way that they view Scripture, but they're only holding them accountable if they are critiquing them on the way that they celebrate Christmas. They're only holding them accountable to the very rhetoric that they put out for everything else. And there's no acknowledgement of that, or even like a taking that in, or humility in approaching that, saying, that's something we need to look at. There wasn't even like a passing line when in regards to like people who didn't have enough or anything like that. There wasn't any acknowledgement to any of that stuff. So I think that you're right. The whole thing, in the form of being with the face of being open to criticism and we need to have fun and all that kind of stuff, really basically says if you have any criticism at all, you're a buzzkill and you should just shut up.
Yeah.
We're affluent, we're white, we're enjoying ourselves. Why do you have to rain on our parade? That's the whole message. We like doing Christmas this way. And okay, sure, we'll, give you some apologetics for why you can justify this or that. And hey, they're paper thin, but just freaking let us have oh man.
So then there's Santa.
Christmas Braveheart.
So it should be noted that as he's giving these mini sermons, fortunately, it's not just him talking and like a single shot camera on him. It cuts to, like the story he's telling. So when he's talking about the Christmas tree, it shows images of Mary and Joseph and the baby, and so it's giving us something visual to look at other than him, which is nice.
Weird, History Channel reenactment.
Exactly. Yeah. But every question that's posed takes I feel like it takes 10 minutes because they were trying to put in like these witty banter things, especially from Christian, the brother-in-law. I'm just like, shut up already. We get it. Like, stop trying to be funny and let him give his bad answer so we can move on.
It was like Thorsus, Cyrus. I don't know. It's some always Norwegian dude.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they made it. They turned him so quickly into this like thoughtful person that was realizing the craziness of what's around him into this just bumbling oaf whose opinions about the holidays were uninformed, which therefore becomes an archetype for everyone else who has criticism towards Christmas as also a bumbling oaf who's uninformed. So he starts his rant on Santa with the most cliche way that you could possibly do it, by stealing a lame church lady joke from Dana Carvey by, if you rearrange the words in Santa, it's Satan. And I'm like, come on. Like, the very fact that you're using that understands that you don't understand that was making fun of you in the first place. Then Kirk Cameron goes into his explanation or his justification. No biblical justification this time, but a historical one of Santa, talking about the real Saint Nick.
Saint Nick, going back to the Council of Nicaea, right? Did I say that right? Or Chalcedon?
Yeah.
No, it's Nicaea.
Because, the real Saint Nick punched someone who disagreed with him. And he uses that story or that historical fact or whatever as a justification for Santa being this badass who goes through the countryside. Like they had this scene where they're talking about how when the heretics, the truth needed to be defended, and they're flashing to Saint Nick with a shepherd's staff because he was a pastor and needed to defend the truth, beating someone in the wilderness. And I'm thinking my gosh, this movie needs a t-shirt, and you need to steal a line from Die Hard that says, "Now I have a shepherd's staff, ho ho ho."
Yeah.
Right?
Nice.
Write that in blood on
beautiful.
It was so horrible. And this movie's for kids. It
was all set to dubstep too. Why don't forget that detail?
Yes.
It was violent. It was a very violent
Super
scene.
violent.
Yeah.
And a little bit traumatic or whatever, traumatizing. I saw it and, it's dark. They're playing the music for it, but it just didn't match the tone. It was this whole acceptance of it. It was right that he beat the crap out of this guy.
And he didn't beat the crap out of him.
No.
It started with he's at a table, right? And he's talking to some guy, because you don't hear the words. It's over his narration. And I'm pretty sure he just slammed his head against the table and then took him out into the wilderness and beat him with a shepherd's staff. And then comes back, and I don't know if it's his handmaiden or his wife or his daughter. She just kind of chuckles and says, "Now that you have that out of your system, let's go give presents to the town kids."
And then he gets happy, and that was
he has
creepy.
a really creepy smile with that.
Yeah,
too.
oh yeah, kids are next. Like, which I'm glad they didn't follow up with the difference between good kids and bad kids. Like, I feel like the next inevitable step would have him like taking children out in the street and beating them or something.
Yeah. They were bad. They need to be corrected. Those people out there telling us we can't, beat our kids. Don't spare the rod.
Yeah, the basic message of that scene, I think, was to communicate that it's okay to enact violence against people that disagree with you. That's what I got from it. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah. Basically, that Santa is like a defender of the divinity of Jesus.
That's right.
Yeah.
That was the only deep, theological thing that they kind of skipped on. I mean, so is Jesus fully divine? Was he fully man? Was he this third type of thing? And that was the whole, right? Like they come up with the weird homoousios or however you say it, right? During that time, that was no, we need to hold this thing that Jesus is fully God and fully man. So, I mean, they kind of missed out on, any kind of, well, why did that matter or anything? And instead it's this, no, it's justification for Santa Claus.
And that's because, you have that evangelical justification of the Trinity, They read Genesis as, well, the Trinity's obviously been there from the beginning. The fact that they even had the conversation in church history, clearly they were wrong, so therefore they were heretics and they deserved to be punched. And and it was like there was no acknowledgement that, man, the church genuinely struggled with trying to find their place after they were now the people in charge. Now they were no longer persecuted, and there was a genuine struggle with what they believed and why they believed it, because they had been so fragmented for so long. And it just throws that all the window with truth has always been there. Anyone who disagreed with where we are now was wrong in the first place. And it
is black and white, and violence is justified then. I mean, this is the beginning of, this same argument is what gets applied to why war is justified, or why, we need to destroy other people before they destroy us. A good shepherd protects the truth. Like the capital T truth is so valuable that regardless of the fact that the entire institution or the entire, the entire religion is based on someone who, when faced with, power and oppression, decides to, get crucified or allow that to happen. Instead of that, we need to defend that very truth then by violence. It is just sad and disturbing, really.
And a subtle insinuation that we need to be prepared to do that again.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and maybe your Christian friend who doesn't like Christmas needs to be punched. Like that's, if you can't reason with them, maybe they just need to get hit because, that might actually snap it out. All for the purpose so that we can just keep enjoying our affluence and our, joy.
Kirk Cameron in this is almost like a twisted version of Negan from The Walking Dead.
Oh, snap.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just like there's this demeanor about him that's like joyful and we want to have a good time, but there's this underlining like dark violence, especially in this particular part.
I'm gonna get Saint Nick on you.
Yeah, it was so. And then like even when they cut back to Christian thoughtfully considering Kirk Cameron's words about Santa, and he's like, Santa, he was awesome, or like it was like, oh man, he's like, now I'm totally on board.
That's a good comparison,
right?
It's creepy. A really good comparison.
Even when they cut over to the guy playing Santa, like the look on his face, like, right? Like there was this close up of the eyes of Santa, and it was like, I'm about to like beat some people right now because Jesus,
creepy. It was like his brother-in-law or somebody, right? It was, or uncle.
Yeah, whoever was playing Santa
some
at the
weirdo.
party. Yeah.
And they kind of play it up as like, oh, he's kind of a weirdo dressed in whatever, Uncle Joe or whatever his name was in the suit. But it was genuinely creepy. Like,
and then it cuts to essentially like that's the turning point, right, for Christian. And then he like barges into the house like action hero style and does the slide into the presence with the light behind him. And then DeAndre comes out and is like, "Woo, what's going on here?" Like,
let's get the black man on a DJ. Can we get him on the spinning? I'm so white. I don't know what it is.
And then it,
like the record player.
I know. I think he was just
can
like
play some music,
playing the keys on. I don't know what he was doing. But then he comes in, and then of course, like you have to be the man of the household now and apologize to your wife and restore Christmas, because Christmas was ruined because you are the patriarch, and whatever attitude you have trickles down to everyone else. So you need to make it right. So the responsibility's all on you.
Yeah. So that was another thing they failed to do well, was like, that was the argument. Like, you are ruining it for your kids. You're ruining it for your wife. You're ruining it for everybody in the party is so affected by the fact that you're not in here. But yet in the movie, no one knew or cared that he wasn't there. It had nothing to do.
No one- Exactly.
He wasn't
Yeah.
doing anything. I mean, actually,
They
that
were
was,
doing just fine, sipping
Yeah.
their cocoa that Kirk was handing out like hotcakes.
it's like a basic. I don't know. Like as an introvert, I felt like there's a little bit of that too. Of like, if you're not even in the party having as much fun as everyone, you're at fault. You're making it horrible for everyone else. And I was like, if you're gonna say that, fine. But like, well, then follow it up with the way that you make the movie. Like, make people like, wait, where's Dad? How come Dad's
Yeah.
not in here? Or
Absolutely.
like, where's your brother? Where's it's just Kurt who's kind of pissed that like, why isn't everybody as excited about hot cocoa as I am? Hey kids, get over here, have some hot cocoa. I don't care what it says.
Yeah. Well, and then the apology, right? So he
Oh my gosh.
he makes
I'm-
the triumphant walk through
I'm
the
so excited
kitchen
about
past the 2 refrigerators and 1 large wine refrigerator. And then it ends with her saying,
Wait for it.
do you have the quote?
I have the quote.
Okay, give me the
I
quote.
have it as well.
Okay,
Go ahead, Dylan.
Dylan, go give us the quote.
Okay, so Christian says, "This Christmas, I want to give you something I've been waiting for a long time."
Pause.
"What do you got in mind, Big Papa?" says his wife.
And they give each other very suggestive looks.
That's wonderful.
And then Kirk Cameron pauses it, right?
Does.
Yes.
And what does he say?
He says basically, I know this is the part where you think there's going to be like a big kiss.
Like, what do you kiss?
Yeah, what do you expect?
quotes
to happen
around
right
kiss.
now? What do you expect to
Yeah.
happen right now?
Because the way that they were talking, there was more than a kiss that was about to happen.
Well, he says that.
Like, it was
right?
about to cut to a scene of like jingle bells against the dash, the headboard. You know,
It seemed like it. She says, or he says his thing, I want to give you something, right? And then they pause, and I'm like, that's kind of dirty. Maybe I just have a dirty
Yeah.
mind. And then she says, Big Papa. And I'm like, wait a second. Like, why is she like, okay. And then Kurt says, now you know what's going to happen. I'm like, what's happening? Who just hijacked this movie?
And then he thinks he's being clever but sometimes the hero does something unexpected.
How about a choreographed dance with blah, 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 blah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then DeAndre cuts the music, and then random people have a choreographed dance planned in front of the Christmas tree.
right.
Yeah.
Liberty dance team, Liberty University dance team shows
Which,
up.
by the way, the first thing you see in this movie, we forgot to mention in the beginning, is a Liberty University sponsored by this is a commercial for Liberty
It
University.
is.
I felt like this whole movie, like in the context of like a mid-sized church, of like a ministry that does like videos for their church, it would have been pretty decent. I would have gone in there and be like, oh, this is fun. Like, this is just this community. They put this out there. They really think they put a lot of work into it, all that kind of stuff. Like, it would have been nice. But as like this, everybody should see this movie out there for everyone from, I guess, professionals, which I have a hard time if your film company's called Cam Fam. But professional might be a strong word. But it just felt like this would be a good church play for an evangelical church who really like was on board with these things, and it would have been fine and fun to see. Like, I feel like the people who made this movie, they looked at it like you would look at a church play that's really bad from the outside for everyone else, but because they're people you're kind of
Yeah.
like, oh, this is fun, this is great.
We all know DeAndre is not really a fast-talking black guy. So let's have him do that. That's funny. I mean, actually, I think he's one of the producers, too. He's on the list. But has such great potential to be, look at all the silly things we do. To kind of take itself, so I didn't think it took itself too seriously, but they could have really made fun of themselves, and it would have been great. It would have been like, yeah, we do some dumb stuff as Christians. And I mean, that kind of gets me to this other thing of, because the movie is so bad, and because it's clearly not a movie, but just kind of like a sermon. It reminded me so much of the one we just watched, the like, if footmen tire you, what will horses do thing, where it's just a
very similar.
sermon
Yeah.
that happens to have some random, so back to the thing of, Adam Ruins Everything, or whatever the different YouTube channels are of, here's a 10-minute thing. The movie could have been 10 minutes long of here, we don't, here's my justification for this. Here's a quick answer to that. And it would have been kind of cute and funny. And we would have still thought, okay, it's dumb, but whatever. But because it's a full-length feature film, and because of the way that it was advertised, it really just feels to me like another really like not at all honest movie. What I mean to say is it's not like it doesn't seem to be in any way responding to any real serious, need. It's more of a, hey, let's put out a Christmas movie. We can make a ton of money because Christians will go see it. It just really felt overtly, what it was all about capitalism, about commercialism. Hey, let's take advantage of the fact that Christians need, will respond if it's, if it has a hashtag Christian or a tagged Christian somehow, they'll go watch it and we can make some money off this. Like, I really don't think there was any message that people needed to hear, and I'll say this about some of the previous stuff, like the God's Not Dead movies or whatever. It does seem like they're trying to address a real, not real, but a perceived threat. This one's like, are there really that many Christians out there that are the people who are, that actually know the history of some of this stuff and who are anti-Christmas? Because that's what it was like. I don't know. I really question the motivation behind the making of this movie.
I feel like a lot of it was a response to a book that came out a while ago called Pagan Christianity. That was put out, I think, by Barna. We'll put it in the show notes. But that book was a good history, a decent history of like how not just Christmas, but a lot of the things that we celebrate as Christians, Easter, even some of the things we do in church, have pagan origins.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure it's been a while since I've read it, but the author, his conclusion was like basically we abandon everything, which it's a little bit extreme. So I think almost like maybe Kirk Cameron read that book and was responding to the author's conclusion to all those facts, as opposed to just being like, that's what it is. And, we don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Yeah. But I think he was just more of like, because I disagree with his conclusion to the facts, I need to find new facts and discredit them. Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, I do have one thing that I really liked. So there was a character, I don't think he had a real name, but I think in the credits was called the conspiracy theorist.
The bald guy with the beard.
The bald guy with the beard who sits behind DeAndre and is like, and I thought it was comedic. It was really funny. Like he's like, put up your Christmas mug so that people can't see us talking, and then, or so we don't have to act and actually say stuff, and we can just do it in a sound studio later. I don't know. But he gives all these like conspiracy theories, and it was great because one of the things they did wonderfully is the conspiracy theorist said at one point, he said something like, and I heard it on Fox News, so it has to be true. And I thought, hey, good for them. Like to kind of make fun or have a character that is clearly just a wacko conspiracy theorist, but to kind of throw that
to call out, Fox News in particular instead of just the news.
Right. Yeah. I was like, well done. So they snuck that in. I don't know. Somehow that got past Kirk's review or whatever. Like it's like,
that was a weird scene too. That like cut in between all of it. But you're right. Like the comedic timing from everyone aside from Kirk Cameron was pretty good. Any other thoughts on the film itself before we move on to our rating?
Never in the history of anything I've ever watched have I seen someone so smug throughout. It was just, oh my gosh. So they both, him and his sister, get awarded, whoever it is, for like the worst actor award, or nominated for the worst actor, and his sister got like worst supporting actor. I mean, they just eviscerated the film online.
This is a Razzie winner, I think, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I felt like you could add to that, like most smug character of all time goes to Kirk Cameron.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I think I was just shocked and appalled by Kirk's voiceover at the end, where he says Christmas is about taking on a material body, so it's okay to make it about material things. Like that made my jaw drop. I was so horrified that they would say that. And
wow.
Yeah, I missed a lot of what he said after that because I was so floored by that statement.
Yeah, they just so blatantly approved and affirmed capitalism and consumerism that takes place around Christmas. I was just shocked, not even angry.
Yeah, it was. And going back to that smugness too, like it was with this air of humility. Even at the dinner scene, it was almost like I let Christian be the hero of the story, but my sister knows who the real hero is, which was weird too. Like they gave this weird wink and smile to each other at the end, and I don't understand what's going on here. Okay, so if you're listening to this Divine Cinema episode for the first time, and we spell that with an S, by the way.
It's clever.
Yeah, it is clever. It's our way of emulating Kirk Cameron's cleverness. But we have come up with a rating system. This is recent, so this is only our second rating because in the first two we discussed how we were going to work this. So basically, we have a rating system of 1 to 30 pieces of silver. How much did this particular movie sell out the gospel of Jesus Christ? So Adam, let's start with you. What is your rating for this particular movie?
Oh man, it's if we could do more than 30, I would do more than 30. And Jesus is just the means to justify our elaborate, fancy stuff. So this is a complete sellout of the gospel.
So you're giving it the full 30.
Full 30. Full 30.
Full 30.
You can't get
Dylan. How about you?
Yeah, same here. Full 30.
Whoa.
It is a complete sellout, and it is nothing but Trojan horse for this capitalistic, consumeristic Christianity that is not really focused on Jesus a whole lot. So I'm gonna say full 30.
Wow, gentlemen, this is some harsh criticism. I'm still saving my full 30 for something, but I am giving it, high marks, and I would say 28.
Nice. Okay.
Because I'm on board with the sentiment of like celebrating the holidays and allowing symbols to mean something to your family. So there were certain aspects of it that I was like, I like that. I just wish that they would see the irony in them propping up this concept of using symbols and understand that they're doing the exact opposite. So I can't in good conscience give it the full 30 because I
Jeff and Judas both start with J. You're wrong. I'm just kidding. I'm pushing back.
I may be. Well, we have a very specific opinion about this movie. But the very fact that this movie exists and has made a little bit of money, I didn't find any figures to how much it made. But for those of you that bought this movie, fortunately, it was streaming on Hulu when we watched this. So this is when I had to rant.
You could watch it on YouTube as well. Like someone had posted it for something. I can't remember. I didn't watch it on YouTube. I watched it on Hulu. But and in the comment section of it, it was like a review is what it was titled, but it was just the full movie. And one of the comments was, clearly this movie is not great if it's not been taken down or whatever. Like clearly it's not important enough because it's just the movie and it's been here for a while. So they must not care.
Well, at least they're consistent with their theology, right? They believe it's the gospel. They're putting it out there for people to trying to take it down. So we clearly we have an opinion about this, but we have scoured the internet for people that have enjoyed this movie, and we're calling this redeemed perspectives to continue with our reappropriation of religious terms. And so, gentlemen, did you find any reviews that maybe gave you pause about how good this movie might actually be?
Okay, I got one. So on Amazon, I think it was a 5-star review. Capital letters, loved this movie, ! I'm not sure why our culture and history has gone to POT, to pot, literally. So I think they're talking about smoking pot, I guess. But I'm thankful Kirk takes a stand and reminds us what Christmas is all about. What a special movie, perfect for our times. Grab the family and Coco and teach the kids before they're completing, I think they meant to say completely blinded by the new culture, whatever that is. And then a parenthetical comment, a real example of the current culture. A school dropout tonight told me to, quote, F off at the grocery store, ... in a parenthetical comment. That's it. So, if you want to keep your kids off grass, watch this movie. It's going to help. Love the movie. So people like it. Okay. That was me. Dylan?
All right. Dylan, you got one?
Yeah, I got 2, so I'm going to break the rules. So first one is great movie, inspires you to decorate for Christmas. And that's a 5-star review, which I suppose is true.
Yeah, that's absolutely.
It's true. Yeah.
Christmas things.
I think I might have gotten a couple Christmas decor ideas from that movie.
Bright, shiny lights behind people.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
that made me, that fit the criteria. It made me reconsider the movie a little bit. And then this one is my personal favorite. Great movie, really gives you a great new perspective on the meaning behind a lot of things about Christmas. Also can really help anyone feeling depressed about how wrapped up we are in gifts and food and parties around Christmas time. And I chose that one because if you have a friend that is feeling depressed, I think the last thing, it might actually help to show them this movie because they might laugh and, get some of those endorphins going.
Clearly that person didn't watch the movie because the movie's encouraging you to get wrapped up in presents and stuff, right?
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Well, I also have 2, one from Amazon and one from Rotten Tomatoes. The Amazon one says, I just bought 3 copies. Why?
Trinity.
3 copies for.
Yeah.
Fun and kind of silly movie. Just right for family Christmas get-togethers. We'll share it. Thanks, Kirk. Happy face.
Thanks, Kirk.
Thanks. We're on first name basis.
Yeah.
Great for family get-togethers. Interesting. 3 copies. Like what? Like, are you gonna wear one out? Anyway, this one concerned me a little bit about this person's. Let me read this. This movie was recommended by my doctor. Don't know why your doctor would recommend this. who had been frustrated with the materialism at Christmas. Oh, okay. He told me it totally changed his view, and that was enough for me to check it out. Wow. Capital letters. Wow. This movie is powerful, rich in traditions and story, informative, inspiring.
There's
so
a lot
basically,
of questions that get raised from that review.
right? So his doctor, who has a valid frustration about materialism at Christmas, and then watched this movie and was like, oh, I'm totally fine. I'm good with materialism now.
Should be.
All right. So if you've listened to this this far into the episode, we are now going to move into our recommendations. So movies that we feel this movie really tried to be, or just recommendations for something better to watch that's somewhat related to the material here. So Dylan, how about, let's start with you. How about any recommendations, any movie we can watch to cleanse our palate?
I think if you're looking for a silly feel-good movie, it's my family's tradition to always watch the National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, which has some prime Chevy Chase in there doing his physical ineptitude comedy, and it's just got some good laughs, and it's just nostalgic for me. So that's going to be my recommendation.
Nice. My recommendation is to watch the animated version, the old animated version of How the Grinch Stole Christmas, because it is the right message. That's the antithesis of this, right? That ends up with the, like, it came without packages, it came without toy, that's the message. Like, Christmas isn't about these ridiculous things. It's about, joy. And I mean, I don't know. It's great. How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
If you want a movie about an upper middle class family struggling through their issues, trying to find joy in the holidays again, watch The Ref. It is the complete opposite of this movie in every single way. It is not family friendly. You'll notice that from the very first scene.
Kevin Spacey? No.
It's Kevin Spacey.
Yeah, and
Kevin Spacey and Dennis Leary. Kevin Spacey plays a upper middle class guy who's estranged from his son, who he sent off to military school, and they're all coming together for the holidays, and they get taken hostage by Dennis Leary's character, who had just robbed a house and is hiding out from the cops. And it is wonderful. It is a great Christmas movie to watch if you don't mind a heck of a lot of cursing, and the religious imagery in it is even more wonderful. One of my favorite bits from the movie is there's this chocolate nativity scene, and Dennis Leary, the burglar, picks up the baby Jesus and takes a bite, and it's gross, and he's like, Jesus. So good. Just a little. And then there's like an overbearing mom character in the movie that kind of uses her money to control everyone, like materialism being the thing that destroys this family, which is, well, it should be. And she starts saying how she doesn't want to talk about this anymore. And finally, Kevin Spacey's character, who is the number one son, snaps and says, Mother, do you know what I'm going to get you this Christmas? I'm going to get you a nice wooden cross. So every time you feel unappreciated, you can climb up on it and nail yourself to it.
Dang.
It's so good. It's biting, it's irreverent, and it deals with the reality of situations that we faced in family. So
that is
if you have kids,
burn.
don't watch them with the kids, but watch this movie. It is great. So I think that'll do it. That'll do it for us, not only for this episode, but for 2016 here at Irenicast.
Specifically Divine SINema, right?
Specifically Divine SINema. So Divine SINema, like I said in the beginning of the show, is that we are not going to be on the last Tuesday in January because that falls on our 100th episode, and we want to do something special. So we may very well have all 5 hosts on that episode, and we're going to have some fun things planned. So please keep listening. Check our website, irenicast.com, for any information as we head closer to our 100th episode. And for our next Divine SINema, which will be on the 4th Tuesday of January, we're going to be doing a movie called Christian Mingle. No, we're not talking about the website Christian Mingle. Apparently there is a movie, Christian Mingle.
TM, trademark.
Exactly, right? And from what we gather from the premise, it is about a girl who is out of luck in her romance life and decides to join Christian Mingle despite the fact that she's not a Christian, and finds a really good guy. And in the end, we assume, we haven't seen it yet, but we're looking.
They have sex. Just kidding. They probably don't.
My goodness. They may not have sex.
Kiss. Big Papa.
Join us next month for Divine Cinema. And then, of course, we are continuing our regular episodes with my wonderful co-hosts, Mona and Alan, as we continue forward. So check out all of our stuff. If you want to support the show, you can do that at irenicast.com/support. If you want to comment on this particular episode and add your opinion to this, you can do that at irenicast.com/95. And that's the show notes for this show. And you'll find all the links to the many things that we talked about. And there you can comment and give your opinion as well. So for this edition of Divine Cinema, hope everyone had a wonderful holiday season and hope everyone has a wonderful 2017. Thanks for joining us.